Straight toward Metropolis? Excuse me, Professor. I've got a date in outer space.
No, don't try it, Superman.
Maybe I can knock it off its course.
The legend, George Reeves, transitioned from a superstar to a controversial subject of crime. In the 1940s and decades after, Howe was an important name in the film industry.
I'm positive. I'd have really been foolish. I feel foolish enough now, but then I would have spent sleepless nights, bought flowers to lay at your feet, flowers I couldn't possibly have afforded.
Known for his incredible acting skills, controversial love life, and ultimately, his unresolved demise, which people still talked about until today and can be compared to regular crime scenes in movies, the only difference being that many of the movies end up revealing the culprit. This gradually became a mystery as people came in, giving their different stories and bringing more unresolved questions. So, what is this mystery about? How was it finally solved? What really happened to George Reeves? Hang on as we answer these lingering questions. What really happened to Superman? There have been many legendary figures of the baby boom era, like Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Marilyn Monroe, and Elvis Presley. But among these talented people who paved the way for the Hollywood we have today, we had George Reeves, the first Superman on TV. News has it, however, that he tragically took his own life in June 1959, leaving many children who admired his superhero skills and stunts in utter shock. The idea that George, every child's hero at that time, could end his own life seemed unbelievable, and maybe it truly was. On the early morning hours of that fateful day, someone discovered his body in his bedroom upstairs, while his fiancée, Leonore Lemon, who is often described as one of the biggest gold diggers with a huge desire for the spotlight, sat downstairs with a guest named Robert Condon and two neighbors, and all of them were heavily intoxicated when the police arrived. In that windowless room, people found him naked on his bed, surrounded by a pool of blood. A gun lay between his feet, a shell casing rested beneath him, and a bullet had struck his brain, leaving a gruesome streak of blood splattered across the wall up to the slanted ceiling. Knowing that this would cause a lot of traffic in the news and media industry, the Los Angeles police and coroner quickly called it a self-harm and finished up the investigation with what many described as a suspicious rush. For a week, the newspapers buzzed with headlines, but then, as expected, the story faded into the background. However, a lot of Reeves' friends suspected something fishy, and the list of potential suspects and motives was far from short. Decades have passed, and controversies have come up, but the police never reopened the case, leaving increasing doubts and proving that something deep is connected to the sudden demise of the legend. Just like the controversial theories which surrounded the unsolved case of Elizabeth Short, who was known as the Black Dahlia, the circumstances surrounding George's demise are clouded by contradictory details, preventing a vivid picture from forming. Instead of a single narrative, it feels more like there are three incomplete jigsaw puzzles, each missing crucial pieces. On that night, George and his fiancée, Leonore Lemon, whom he had dumped Tony Mannix for, enjoyed dinner and drinks, and they returned around 11 p.m., and George went to bed alone shortly after midnight. After 1 hour, he came down in a mood when Robert Condon's partner, Carol Van Ronkel, a married neighbor, arrived with a man named William Bliss, who was not really known to the group. Robert later recalled that George later apologized for his irritability and went back upstairs. According to the police report, Leonore said, "He is going to shoot himself," and they truly heard a drawer open above them. She continued, "He is getting the gun out now, and he is going to shoot himself." And some minutes later, a gunshot echoed through the house. William was the first person to rush upstairs, only to find George lifeless on the bed. At least, that was the account given by the 4 intoxicated witnesses during their quick police interviews before they went into the night. And this is the reason their accounts were suspicious. A week after the incident, the investigation took a weird turn when Leonore reportedly breached the evidence seal at the property and immediately took off to New York, taking with her $4,000 in traveler's checks. These checks were supposedly meant for a honeymoon, a detail known only to her. The autopsy did not occur until his body was washed, and it raised a lot of concerns. They did not test for the residue of gunpowder on his hands, and although they removed the top of the skull, no one checked the wound head for gunpowder traces that would indicate close-range firing. Also, the added mystery to this was the unexplained bruises on his face and chest. George did not display any sign of self-harm behavior. He didn't leave a note, yet they found him lifeless, an extremely atypical situation for a self-harm. None of his friends and family could think that a charismatic and joyful person like George would have an actual reason to take his own life, except his Superman co-star named Jack Larson, who played Jimmy Olsen when he accepted the self-harm verdict, suggesting it was due to him making such a mess of things by abandoning his longtime benefactor at a time when his career seemed to crumble. Come years later, Phyllis Coates, another actor who portrayed Lois Lane, recalled a troubling phone call she received at 4:30 a.m. on the day George left the world. It was from Tony Mannix, who was hyperventilating and scared. Phyllis said she was moving up and down, scared and ranting, saying, "The boy is lifeless. He is no longer alive." In 1999, the Beverly Hills publicist named Edward Lozzie claimed on the tabloid TV show called Extra that just before her demise, Tony had confessed to her priest, while Lozzie was present, that she had orchestrated George's demise. He said that the possible enforcers who worked for her husband, Eddie Mannix, were all deceased, allowing him to speak freely. Edward later told the LA Times that Tony confessed because she was terrified of going to hell. However, her admission raises many more questions than answers, and it gives no clear explanation for how George could have been killed in a house full of witnesses who are believed to be his friend and loved ones. To add to the so many mysteries, investigators found a few bullet holes, 2 in the floor and 1 in the wall of the downstairs living room. Leonore said those bullets were the result of her firing the gun during a heated argument with Reeves. Her toxic temperament and explosive outbursts have long made her a prime suspect in various theories. Yet again, there's a lack of conclusive evidence. Interestingly, 30 years later, Leonore told a reporter that William had fabricated her step-by-step predictions of George's supposed self-harm. Her subsequent flight from scrutiny can be attributed not only to her attitude, but also to the negative motives she might have had concerning his demise. It's possible that a drunken argument over the gun led to a fatal and accidental discharge, but the weapon had been oiled, which meant that it could not retain fingerprints, either his or hers, which further complicated the investigation. His demise continues to frustrate and surprise the people who seek answers to questions that keep coming in. All witnesses are either deceased or have scattered. The archives and books are closed, the coroner's reports are completed, and the case is deemed solved. Yet no one is truly satisfied. What remains is Hollywoodland, which is a thoughtful exploration of the facts and possibilities surrounding his demise. It may not give an actual answer, but it offers a respectable tribute to the restless spirit of George Reeves, and it is probably the best he can hope for. The film presents a story involving possible explanations for the controversial discussion. One of the scenarios suggests that in a heated argument, an angry and intoxicated Leonore Lemon accidentally shoots George. Another possibility explored is a contract killing that Eddie may have orchestrated. The film subtly states that there is a possibility that Eddie, hurt by the end of his wife's affair with George, might have retaliated by depriving him of his dreams of establishing his own production company. Then there's the scenario of a revenge by the heartbroken Tony Mannix. The film suggests that still having the keys to the house, she could have easily accessed him, still driven by jealousy and despair. Eddie might have also covered up the act out of love and loyalty to his wife, deepening the complexities of their marriage. Also, the film suspects the possibility of self-harm, portraying him as a man who was struggling with intense feelings of failure in his career and personal life. Talking about his family and what they thought about the whole situation, his mother believed everything happened in such a hurry, and it was wrong to label her son's demise a self-harm. This made her hire an attorney named Jerry Giesler to request a reinvestigation. Another autopsy, which was conducted at Jerry's insistence, got similar findings to the first, aside from a series of unexplained bruises on George's head and body. After a month of investigation that found no evidence contradicting the initial ruling, Jerry announced that he was satisfied about the fact that the gunshot wound was self-inflicted. So he withdrew from the case, and George's mom had to forget about it. Apart from his family, his fellow actors also thought there was something wrong with the story spreading about their colleagues' demise. For example, Alan Ladd and Gig Young reportedly expressed their doubt about the official self-harm determination. His friend, Rory Calhoun, told a reporter, "No one in Hollywood believed the self-harm story." In a book titled Hollywood Kryptonite, the authors, Sam Kashner and Nancy Schoenberger, brought in a theory which involved MGM vice president named Eddie Mannix, suggesting that George's affair with Tony could have led to foul play. Some stated that Tony's husband must have sent people to assassinate him. Adding another layer to the story, people stated that George had ended his affair with Tony to pursue a relationship with Leonore Lemon, further complicating the whole story surrounding his sudden demise. We have seen the kind of controversy following the demise of George and how there are still more questions to be answered. We still have to examine the interesting relationships he had with women and how this may have contributed to what happened to him. There is still a lot to unravel, so sit back as we dig up these stories. The controversial relationships George had to deal with. In 1948, George got himself involved in a 10-year affair with Toni Lanier Mannix, a former Ziegfeld Follies showgirl known for her legendary appetite for men. She was rich and glamorous, and she lavished her wealth on him, giving him expensive gifts and even purchasing the house at 1579 Benedict Canyon Drive in the Hollywood Hills, where he would later be found lifeless. Her husband, Eddie Mannix, a Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer executive known to have mob ties, was aware of the affair and even surprisingly consented to it. According to The Guardian, he and his own mistresses often went on double dates with George and Tony, with the Mannixes traveling in first class while their companions were relegated to coach. In 1958, George ended his relationship with Tony and got his eyes on a younger socialite from New York named Leonore Lemon. Everyone described her as a party girl and a well-known gold digger with a very short temper, but she quickly became engaged to Reeves and moved into the home his ex had gotten for him. That's a form of audacity that no one has done in a long time. At 45, George told his friends that young woman made him feel young again, which his ex could not give him, although she had all the money to take care of him. However, their relationship was marked by constant challenges and hot arguments. Tony, who was 8 years older than George, was reportedly depressed due to their breakup, which was valid because she had invested a lot on him. This feeling led to actions that made George file for a restraining order. A magazine named The Unredacted noted that he believed that Tony was behind a series of the incidents that occurred after their separation. He received threatening silent phone calls at all hours and even had his beloved dog, Sam, abducted. 2 months before the night that changed everything, he was involved in a car accident, and his mechanic later stated that the brake lines had been cut. This continued to raise further suspicions about the situations that led to his untimely demise. These events keep adding to the already complex narrative of his life and controversial personal relationships with a growing sense of fear and threats. He had really toxic relationships, especially with Tony. But who may have been the cause of his demise? Was it Tony, who was heartbroken because of George? Or was it Leonore, who had insane anger issues? We can never tell, and it is still unresolved. But let us get into how George made it into the film industry and made a black. Was it all bed of roses? Let's look into that quickly. The life and times of the legend. George's real name is George Kiefer Brewer, and he was born on the 5th of January, 1914, in the humble farming community of Woolstock, Iowa. He was the only son of Don and Helen Brewer, who officially separated within a few months of his birth. Shortly after the split, Helen and her newborn son moved to Pasadena, California, where she met and got married to Frank Besselo. After his graduation from high school, George enrolled at Pasadena Junior College, where he turned his attention to music and acting, by joining the a cappella choir, playing the guitar, and performing in school plays. In 1935, at the age of 21, he joined one of America's most prestigious theaters called the Pasadena Community Playhouse. Over the next 4 years, he appeared in dozens of Playhouse productions. George received his huge break when the Hollywood producer David O. Selznick gave him a role as Stuart Tarleton in the legendary film titled Gone with the Wind in 1939, starring Vivian Leigh and Clark Gable. He did so well that his part in the film led to a successful contract with Warner Brothers Studios, who convinced George to adopt the stage name Reeves. Although Reeves earned acclaim for his performance in Gone with the Wind, he went on to appear in a succession of less than memorable projects, including Tear Gas Squad, Calling All Husbands in 1940, and Man at Large in 1941. But bigger things were waiting for him. In 1943, George landed his first starring role in the box office hit, called So Proudly We Hail, in which he played a wounded Second World War soldier who falls in love with a co-star Claudette Colbert. Shortly after the film's release, he paused his career to get listed in the Army. When he joined the Special Theatrical Unit of the U.S. Army Air Corps, he appeared in several training films, which included a movie on the dangers of venereal disease. While stationed in New York, a theater director cast Reeves in a small role in the play Winged Victory. After the show's run on Broadway, he toured the country with the production company. In 1956, at the end of the war, he returned to California, and over the next few years, his only film roles were in low-budget embarrassments like Jungle Goddess and Thunder in the Pines, and they were not released in 1946. In the long run, he got frustrated with belittling opportunities in film and started directing his efforts toward television work. In 1951, he reluctantly accepted the title role in the TV series titled The Adventures of Superman. In the fall of 1952, Superman premiered to incredibly high ratings and equally impressive criticism. He played both the crime-fighting hero and his mild-mannered alter ego Clark Kent, and he quickly became a household name with children who began to regard him as a hero. However, as the popularity of the series swelled to a phenomenal level, Reeves became more and more dissatisfied with the direction in which his career was headed. In 1953, the film industry gave him a chance to resurrect his film career with a substantial role in From Here to Eternity. However, his hopes were crushed when a preview audience laughed and yelled, "There's Superman!" when Reeves first came on screen. In the film's final release, the actor appeared only momentarily and without screen credit. Typecasting brought Reeves's career to a grinding halt, and From Here to Eternity marked his last major motion picture. What do you think about the solved mystery of George Reeves? Let us know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. To enjoy more exciting videos, click play on the video on your screen. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you get notified when a new video drops.